What up, folks? As you all can tell, Mikey's got a little bit of different background. There's some renos going on, but before we even get there, John, welcome to the freaking show. How are you doing, brother?
What's up, man? I'm good. How are we doing?
I'm pumped. We already got people watching. This is going to be a wild ride. I just want to say, like, Lazy Lions for the OGs like us, you know, I'm back in, I think 2020, I actually was like checking out NAT. 2021 is when I really got into it. Lazy Lions is a brand. And the fact that we're still rocking and talking about Lazy Lions gets me excited. And I know you have a wild story about that. Cannot wait to take that through that. But thank you for coming on, man. Like, never in a million years, 4 years later, will I be like, oh, Lazy Lions is still a thing. And they're going to be on my podcast. Would have never guessed that that was a thing, but we're here now. So thank you for being here, man.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'll go the other end. Never in a million years I think I would be here.
Exactly. As the CEO of Lazy Lions. So before we get into the fantastic content we're going to hit up, a little bit of catch up about me. We have Tribe coming on Wednesday. This guy, James, he's been a serial entrepreneur as well. He's building a lot of really cool stuff around meme coins. He's been heavy into music. There's going to be a fantastic conversation. We've got Top Unfiltered Minds, which is, John will remember this, Hate Beast days. So I was original Hate Beast mod. My two OG Hate Beast mod friends, Christian and Mojito, we've all started a space together, and we do kind of a condensed version of what we're doing here now too. And John, maybe in the future you can come on. But we have Kev from Final Bosu tomorrow. He's already been on the podcast. They're doing a cool little reveal, NFT reveal function this week. Every week, part of the collection gets revealed. And I think the more that you go on throughout the week and your NFT isn't revealed means the rarer your NFT is going to be, with the culminating in the final day, which is the Bosu reveals, which is the boss reveal. So I think the super rare NFTs will be revealed on Friday. So if you still got a little suitcase image and Friday's coming, you're probably going to get some dope ass artwork, although all the artwork is pretty cool. Nice. That's what you can expect from me. Have you heard of Final Bosu, John?
I have not.
Dude, yeah. So they're big on abstract chain. They're kind of there. I would say it's abstract Suzuki. It's their equivalent of Suzuki anime art. Look them up. They're super hyped, and I haven't heard anybody actually do kind of a daily reveal like this. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects the floor price sentiment and kind of the hype around it, right? It's called Final Bosu, and it's spelled BOSU. So definitely check them out. I'll send you links later. So that's what you can expect from Mikey G for the week. We'll probably hop on Abstract, do a little streaming. Bubba and I always like to talk business strategy. I love product. I love product marketing. I love asking the why, understanding the why. I think a lot of founders, and John, I'll go off the rails here a little bit. I love your info before we get to that, because I always have these thoughts and ideas that come up. You're an entrepreneur. I still am amazed, and I talk about this a lot, the amount of founders I talk to that can't tell me their why. They always go to the what, right? Like, hey, tell me about your business. Oh, I'm building an IP. I'm building a brand IP. Like, well, that's the what. Like, why are you doing this? What are your thoughts there? Do you feel like you still consistently go up there, or is this a kind of a tenure and experience of an entrepreneur? What are your thoughts there?
No, I love the why. Like, right. So, I mean, a lot of my original, thoughts, designs, companies have always been focused on small business and people. Right. And so I think there's just this innate desire in me to help a small business, to help a person, right, to get better. And, that's kind of like always been my why. How can I build something, take something small and make it greater?
Right.
And so, I mean, that's just that universal feeling and that love of feeling that. I mean, that's why we do things. And, that's what I try to do with Lazy Lions. And that's what we try to build. And
I'm excited. And I think more of my question, though, is when you deal with entrepreneurs, when you talk to people, do they go to the what and rarely understand the why? Because that's my experience. You agree with that?
They do it all the time. Yes, it's this is what we're doing. Like, well, then that's the consumer question also. The other side,
100%, right?
like, what are you doing?
Yeah, because if you can't answer that, you don't even know who your target market is, or you can't even start to explore who you think your target market is, because you're always going to get surprises, right? Like you have an assumption this is your target market, but the same example for me, right? Like let's use my brand for example. I love Web3. That's why I started podcasting in Web3. But my why is to bring genuine human stories to the masses that share entrepreneurship, how to level up, insights on just how to do better at life. That's not a that's actually not a Web3 thing. And only till recently has my brand grown because people just wanted to make money here, right? And just because I liked Web3, my content, I'd be way better fit for LinkedIn. And I've been thinking about spending more time there, but I've just never left Web3 because I love it. But which is cool. I've got people like yourself that are tenured entrepreneurs that understand the why, that have made money in the past. And now my content has been more and more relevant, literally on a daily basis at this point, because we are finally seeing the next evolution of Web3. Any thoughts there? Does that make sense to you?
No, it perfectly does. I mean, when you look at, LinkedIn, people will live there, and LinkedIn is like a little bit of like what X is now, right? It's a lot of, people posting, thoughts on entrepreneurship, thoughts on everything. That was LinkedIn like 5 or 6 years ago. And so it's really just expanded and shifted platforms, and it's more of that here. And I think it's a better community. I think LinkedIn previously was too many salespeople mixed in there. And so you mixed up that spot. And now all of a sudden we have that cool aspect with Web3, and it's really centered down because X is a giant platform. You'll get lost. But when you narrow it down to Web3 or crypto Twitter, you get that more innate, community feel that you wouldn't get, in all your billion contacts on LinkedIn once you get an audience, right?
Yep. Oh, I know we're going to uncover some insane insights during this conversation. So to get there, first thing that we do is we like to do a little formal introduction here on Mikey G and Web3. And to get to that formal introduction, it's, the bullet points we kind of went over on the announcement tweet, but not everybody's seen that. So obviously, John is the owner and operator of Lazy Lions. Really, and this is what's cool, definitely Lazy Lions kind of started as a PFP, then rolled into that kind of IP play, but really thinking about DeFi, RWAs. In addition, he has deep experience across the e-com space, data science, digital advertising, publishing, build brands, and he's got just this really cool story, and I can't wait to get there, John. One of the things that resonated with me on the intro call was we were talking about how you just kind of got this like free ticket to be like, hey man, go build stuff and break stuff in a corporate environment. And not a lot of people get that kind of ticket. So that I'm sure is a fascinating thing, and we'll get a lot of insights from there. And then he's just 15 years plus leading growth and innovation, major media and tech companies. But here's the most important part. I got a little tidbit about John that no one else probably knows other than his close friends and family. And that is, this dude, at the ripe age of 15, helped break down the Berlin Wall. That's insane to me, to be able to experience such a monumental historical moment like that. How did I do on the intro, buddy? Did I do you justice? Is there anything else you want to add before we get into it?
No, that's good. I love it. You make it sound super important.
You are super important because everyone's super important. I'm going to say you're definitely more important than the average Joe in the sense that you're building something to change the future, and you bought a beloved Web3 IP brand. So you already got a piece of my heart.
There we go.
But to get to the conversation, the meat of it, it's this simple, people. I'm going to take this also time to re-break. We already got people watching. Please retweet this bad boy, like, comment, do all the things. I'm about to comment the abstract link down there. We actually already have some people watching on YouTube as well too. Let's get some people in here because it's going to be a great conversation, and you can comment. When he says something cool, I'm definitely going to use that as a break to engage comments so we can ask some questions and have this narrative. I wanted a two-way narrative, people here. We only can do that if you guys comment. So with that being said, the world famous Mikey G and Web3 question, John, how'd you get the seat you're sitting in today? Please give me episode 1, 2, and 3. To reiterate for the audience, episode 1 is your childhood. Now, how we like to get to the childhood is think about parental figures, parents. What were some mantras that they taught you, or were there vivid memories? Were you a tinker? Did you play sports? What did that look like? Because these are the fundamental years of your life that form you as the human being you are today. So episode 1 would be that. Episode 2 is your schooling, this crazy corporate / entrepreneurship journey. We're going to get a lot of lessons here. And we're here when we go through this. I'm deeply interested in your failures and the insights, your aha moments in this area. Obviously, some general context, but those insights are the things, like I told you in the beginning of this, that will profoundly impact lives and help people think differently. That's why we're here. And then episode 3, real quick, how did you find Web3? How did you get into the Lazy Lions mix? Because we know this existed before you became the CEO. And what does the future look like? I cannot wait to have this conversation. So, brother, hit me with a childhood and we'll go from there.
Perfect. So, yeah. So, childhood. I'm from Iowa. So, first random fact.
Corn Husker, baby. No, that's Nebraska. Sorry.
Close.
That is, but it's still a corn state, right?
It is the corn state. Yeah. It's a pig state, actually, is probably the proper thing, but nobody thinks about pigs much.
Really? Never thought about that.
Corn. But yeah, no, I grew up in Iowa. My dad built our first house. Actually, the whole family. So we're not like Quaker farm people, Mormon people, or anything. It's just, we didn't have a lot of money. My dad didn't,
right.
Brought everybody in. Let's build a giant house in the middle of the country. And so that's what he did. He worked at John Deere his whole life.
Nice.
So eventually he got promoted a bunch of stuff. So we weren't, poor by any means.
Right.
But growing up, it was Spam and macaroni and cheese. But so, we lived, it was like 2 miles to my neighbor's house. So we walked everywhere. I think that probably formed my first thing, right?
Wait. So you lived 2 miles away from like friends and civilization?
Yeah. From my neighbors, from civilization, we lived a good bit. But yeah, no. So we had we had tons of acreage, but just a lot of playing outside. We never played inside for really anything. So everything we did was trees. We dug holes. We played in the yard. We played golf. We played baseball. All of it in the backyard. Ourselves, my brothers and sisters and I. So that was pretty formidable, I guess you could say. We learned a lot about hustle and getting things done, building stuff on your own, right? We had to go do it. Imagination ourselves.
I'm in already here because I think this is fascinating because you're like me. I think I might be older than you. I don't know how old you are, but I'm 43, right? So I went through the generations of growing up without tech. Now we're deep in this tech world. But reflecting back on now, knowing what you know, what do you think these beautiful things that you brought from your childhood because you had that experience, right? Not everyone gets that. One, you're totally removed from just having small town and you're kind of on your own. You're building things with your family, but then technology probably wasn't deeply ingrained either. Or am I wrong there?
No, you're right. And so, growing up, I probably remember earliest days was, I would get up early. You get up early in the country, right? You just wake up. So I think at 4:45 a.m. the TV would turn on, right? Yeah. That means the TV would start working and you could actually watch something.
Wow.
Because there was no broadcast until 4:45 a.m.
Right.
And they played Neil Diamond's God Bless America in Iowa, I think was the right one.
Right.
And you watch that. And then after you're proud to be an American, then you can go on to watching your cartoons.
That is wild. So now reflecting back, what do you think? How do you think that did mold you? That had to have an impact on you in some way or form or another.
Well, I think you learned that, there's things outside, right? And when we talk about touching grass, If you've lived in a world, an era of, being able to touch grass and do nothing else, then you understand things differently, right? And so you can place yourself in different points, and that allows, you to step back a little bit, relax. But also you appreciate the tech so much more, right? And so when you don't have it and you never had it, like, it's ingrained in you to say, like, this is amazing stuff because I grew up with none of this. And, so it's totally different. We had a satellite dish that was like as big as a car, just to like, we'd take 10 minutes to rotate it around to get HBO or something. And like, then it was like, I think it might have took 20 or 30 minutes. I don't know. It was like endless, I feel like, to get like something else. But so you appreciate every moment of that text. And so it's always looking back on that, I guess. Right. And so you can learn from that.
And I want to point that out to the audience. And I think this space in general, and just more tech forward, people need to hear. And I'd love your thoughts on this is, I just like, even touching grass has turned into like almost the good morning tweet in my mind, where it was like, you just say it and a lot of it is just empty, soulless, and you're just doing it because it's part for the culture type of thing. Right. But when you actually really interpret what you said, there's a couple things that I think touching grass means. Obviously detached from technology, but what I also heard you say was get a different perspective, because you not growing up with technology and now being like me, being ingrained with this, when you just referenced touching grass, it actually was another way to say, go experience something new so you can appreciate what you have, or make a change because you don't appreciate what you have. What are your thoughts there? Does that make sense? Or do you have any additional thoughts?
No, I totally agree. It's always been in my life. You have to take a moment, right?
Yeah.
And that moment can be short or it can be long, and to get outside. And, when I worked in corporate world, I went outside for lunch every day. I would sit outside.
Yeah.
I would take a walk. I made sure I walked somewhere to eat. No matter what, you get to smell the air, you get to look at the buildings around you. And I want to say I noticed something new every day.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to appreciate everything and then get my mind off everything else. So you don't know countless problems that I solved walking back after I've taken all that time to relax.
Yes.
And then I can get back to the computer and do what I love. Right. But I need that break. I need that clean air. I need just that moment of like peaceful solitude to like really do that. And I mean, even just now before this show, I was wandering around outside. I just needed the sun for a second, just to take the blue light out of my eyes for a while. Right.
Yeah. And you're dropping bomb after bomb already, dude. We're only like 20 minutes into the conversation, which is this next thing that you followed up is another critical message people need to think about, because it goes counterintuitive to everything everyone always you hear say, grind, grind, grind. It's all about being in the trenches. But I promise you this, man. And you just have said this, you don't have to expand on it or not. But my thoughts here is how I interpret this is, I really don't think you have the time to be creative and ideate if you are trenches 24/7. And that's what I heard you say. What is your thoughts and mentality about this like trench war mentality that you hear so often in the space? Do you have any thoughts about that?
No, you dig in, right? And so, I mean, there's been times, I think deep in 2021, right? I was nervous to leave the house, right? Because then the minute you left the house, you probably lost thousands of dollars, right? Maybe tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah. And so you get in that mindset that you can't do anything. But I kind of stepped back. I want to say closer at the end of 2021 or 2022 and said, I need to really, refocus. And so I would close things out and say, like, I just need to get away and I don't want to worry about anything else. And so, it made me better. Maybe, not value every meme coin that I was holding or every, position, I was willing to walk away from it. And so and that changed as soon as I started to be able to do that. For a while, maybe I got addicted to selling stuff before I went outside, but it allowed me to have peacefulness. And so that's, so much more clarity and so much more ability to like do it. It's relaxing, right? Like, why are you going to be pent up all the time?
Yeah. Dude, I'm sorry. I'm going to break because my dog is scratching at the door and I want to wring his neck, but I'm going to get him real quick. and it's going to take 3 seconds. Dude, what is your problem? Get in here. Interact.
Do
Lay down.
I guess solo.
All right. Sorry about that, man. I don't know. Could you hear that in the background, by the way?
Not really. A little bit. Not bad.
Yeah, he was crushing it. And I'm like, this is going to ruin my background noise. So I actually had the next perfect transition, which is, by the way, cannot wait to cut those videos up, because like this is, again, just, we're barely been doing it, but like this is the substantial content that's beautiful that comes out of the podcast, in the sense that we just talked about trenches and touching grass, but all we did was go one click down. And that is just such a more meaningful way to talk about things than just this surface level crap that we do all day long. Because we say it, and we think if we say it, we're living into it. And that's just not the case. So the touching grass, the tech stuff, let's transition into, and you can start, progressing more in the childhood, but I'm interested in now kind of, what are these kind of mantras and thought processes that are starting to come out? One, based on your environment. Two, based on, it sounds like your dad worked his ass off and can consistently grow. So I'm more kind of interested in kind of the mindsets that are starting to form. One that naturally comes from the small amount you just told me is, you underappreciate hard work. You underappreciate like working with your hands. Like, what are those things as you continue to expand upon? I can't wait to hear those.
No, that's perfect. So, I mean, grew up in the country, right? So a lot of farm, I did a little bit of farm work, summers landscaping, summers farming. It's one of those things where half my high school and, mostly grade school would drop out when it's farm season, right? And so it's Iowa. Like, everybody goes and works on the farm. Everybody goes works in the field. It wasn't different races. It was all white people. Right. When I grew up, right? And so everybody left school, right? And so we would have 30%, I want to say, of our high school that like would drop out senior year to go work in the farms, to go work at the farms.
Right.
We had like 600 people in our graduating class, so it wasn't tiny. But yeah, no, I mean, early on, after, once I started where I could do stuff on my own, the first thing I did was a paper route, of course, right? We delivered papers like in the day, like, right? So every morning at 4:30 a.m. before high school, I delivered papers. The normal kid would be saving for a car. I was saving for my first computer.
Wow.
And so, I want to say that that's one of my defining things, right? Because I saved up for that because I wanted it, right? I had a Commodore 64. I had all the old stuff, right? So I could program BASIC and I could do all the cool stuff, like, right?
Yeah.
Basic, boring stuff. But then I wanted more, right? And so, I had to save a bunch of money and head to Sears, right, to buy my first computer, right? So I needed thousands. Right. So I did the paper route. Eventually, it was taking forever to make money. So I talked my dad into loaning me some money.
Right.
He did. And he didn't buy it for me. And I got my first computer. I was pumped up. Brought it home, hooked it up, bought a package, got Star Wars with it, right? Because I got to have like X-Wing, right? So put it in, and I didn't have enough power to run X-Wing. I thought I did everything right. So I bought this game and everything. And so at that moment, like, right, what do you say? Like, no, I think I can do it still, right? And so I read the DOS manual. Back in the day, you had manuals, and it was like 10,000 pages. It was like stacked this thick, right? And so I read the manual. I learned how to do different prompts and boot it in DOS only mode, so you can boot it without Windows. So that way, once you eliminate Windows out of the operating system, all of a sudden you have enough memory and you have enough power. Right. So then I was able to play X-Wing, and I was like, that is like defining me. I'm gonna find a way. And, it may take me a minute. I may have to read a giant manual. I may have to do something else. I may have to traverse the world, but I'm going to find a way. I'm going to solve the problem, and we're going to make it work.
That was an incredible insight. And here's what I'm interested about is that either comes inherently or learned, as in, a lot of people would have said, well, shit, I need more money and I'm just going to go get a bigger PC. You were like, no, screw that. I'm going to figure this out and make it work. Talk to me about that. Where do you think that comes from?
You know, I mean, I want to say it was my dad. I want to say it was my grandpa. You know, previous to that, I'd spent summers with my grandpa working in landscaping. You know, he worked hard. He was a milkman his whole life. Delivered milk, right? And so you look at time periods in life, and I go off on this tangent a little bit, but like we're not that far away from when society like had milk deliveries in like bottles, like right. And so in my lifetime, my grandpa, who I was on the routes with him sometimes, he would go door to door dropping off milk in bottles to businesses. And so, you know, it's, you know, he worked hard his whole life when milk delivery, when the milk business was down. Like, I don't know, I talk like I knew anything about it, but like when the milk business was going down, you know, he worked, you know, he drove a taxi, you know, he did a bunch of other things and like whatever he could to make money and keep food on the table. And he did it. And eventually, you know, he retired from the milk business. I don't know. It's he was a part of the union. So it's the truck driver union, I guess, or something. But like, you know, eventually retired from all that and became a landscaper. He loved roses. He never went to college, never did anything. But he figured out he loved roses, and then he got addicted to like, or like, you know, just had to figure more out about them. And he did. He started reading more, and he read more, and he learned how to like make different breeds of roses. And I'm probably butchering, like, I don't think it's breeds, but you know, different varieties. And then he created like hundreds of thousands of like different varieties of roses, and he would get them listed, and he was traveling around the world doing rose shows. And like all of that was just like learned him and like his garden and like books from the library. And so, you know, it's one of those things where if you don't know how to do it, you can figure a way how to do it, you know, before the internet, during the internet, after the internet. I mean, there's ways to be able to do things. I mean, you just have to learn and go figure it out.
Yeah. And man, you're blowing my mind. This is all fantastic. And one of the things you said there at the end is before the internet, right? Everyone's like, oh, I need the internet to do this, but it's really just the fundamental principle of figuring out how to solve a problem. Anybody can do it. It's whether you have ambition or not. And so this is the topic that comes up a lot. And I love your insight on this. And the reason why it sparked up is because you talked about your grandfather found a love for roses. And I think passion to be uber successful and ultimately successful. Yes, some people luck out, right place, right time. Some people can be a certain level of success driven straight by money. But I'm talking about the people that are really offering value and really committed to something. That passion is critical. Talk to me just a little bit about the concept between doing something great and being passionate about that thing. How important is it?
I mean, it's like there was a lot of times like growing up, right, where like I would look at it and say like, you know, I'm tall, I'm 6'3" plus, and like they're like, you have to play basketball. And, you know, for a while they're like, you're gonna be 7 foot, you have to. I didn't really have that passion for it, but I mean, I was naturally kind of good at it. But like, you know, I did it, but I didn't give it 175%, like, right. And so, but then once, you know, you put me in front of a computer and you put me in front of like those things, I have that passion to learn more. Once you get me, you know, like talking to small businesses and talking to entrepreneurs, like I start to feel that power and that passion kind of like deep inside me. And I just want to learn more. I want to help their business. I want to, you know, help build our business. I want to find out new things. And so, I mean, it's just how you more, it's like being curious, right? And so, you know, like the Ted Lasso, right? Be curious. Be curious not only in people, but like in the world and like, you know, opportunities around you. And so, I mean, all of that like is just plus and plus. And you can figure that out and then find your passion, and being curious is the only way really to find it sometimes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Man, this is awesome. And you see why I do what I do here is I'm already getting a very deep understanding of who you are and why you think. You know, I understand that technology was fascinating from an early age and that you wanted to learn how things work. That makes sense with the entrepreneurship vibe. I think one thing that we talked about, and then we can have two more kind of questions in this era, and then we can start going forward. But one is, I'd love your perspective to the younger. Believe it or not, I'm about to start another podcast, and I found some people, and it's a cool I like this concept. I would love your real-time feedback on this. So I found some guys in this space. We're all centrally located around LA, either in LA or south of LA.
Right
And
on.
we found a podcast studio, Skull Candy, that headphone company. They have a free podcast studio you can rent out. The whole it's around generational perspectives. And we have generations here that have known nothing but an iPhone. And you have people like us that literally were knocking on our friend's door to go play. So my question to you is, with your generational perspective, this whole touching grass and in the trenches and perspective, I think, is the main thing that came out of that conversation. What is your advice? And you might not have any, which is totally fine, but advice to those people that have known nothing but Web3 and being stuck on this computer 24/7. What is your thought around perspective and how to get perspective, and the deeper meaning of, like, you can't tell me go touch grass, right? Like, what is your response to urging those people to find perspective, and any recommendations or insights there?
I think it's a lot to be willing to, I won't say curious again, but like willing to, like,
I think that's fine.
yeah, like, willing to listen a little bit also, right? And so, I mean, I think early on in my career, the president of one of the companies, he would put the Wall Street Journal on my desk every day after he read it. Then after a while, he said, like, "Do you know how to read it?" I was like, "I know how to read." And he's like, "No, it's not what I'm asking you. You know how to read it." And there's a fundamental aspect of, like, reading the Wall Street Journal, early on. I don't even know if they do it like this anymore. If the left-hand side of it, kind of summarizes everything else, and then you choose what you want to read. I was used to reading the newspaper in a very serendipitous aspect, right? You open it and you just read everything. That's how X is now. You just find random things and you dig into them. Certain aspects of, like, if an older person tells you, or somebody who's more seasoned in anything, they're giving you some information on how to better enable that content to be more efficiently for you. I think there's an opportunity to learn from that. And I think a lot of people will just dig into X and that serendipitous nature of it without the little precursors of, like, what everyone else is dropping in better, more efficient ways. And it's not all about these lists and these whatever else, the talking heads on X, the ex LinkedIn people, right? When they go off on these, guides on everything, that's not the best content. It's sometimes interesting, but it's not the actual guide you need sometimes. Sometimes you need to listen to the seasoned veterans and just, figure out the best ways to actually do things and read things more efficiently.
Dude, massive atomic bomb. Do you know how to read it? Like, that is... I just want to reiterate that for the audience. We have hundreds of people watching already now, and that is such a big bomb from John, which is you all and it's not just you all. This is not the younger generation. It's me too, right? You are so inundated with information 24/7 in this space, and just in general. Learn how to read it. That's one of the most beautiful insights. I've been doing this show for, like, years, man. Thank you for that. Learn how to read it. And that came from reading the Wall Street Journal. And I think the other thing that is critical to reinforce here is learn how to listen, right? And this comes with age as well, too, because when you're young, you feel like you're Superman. You feel like no one can tell you you're the smartest person in the room, and that couldn't be further from the truth, right? And so how do you learn to be open, take feedback, and listen sooner than later? Because that's profoundly impactful, right? If you cannot take criticism and then take that criticism and interpret for good, you're going to be hard pressed to do anything pretty exciting in life. Any additional thoughts there?
No, that's true. And I think a little bit of that goes both ways, right? And I think the messaging coming from someone like myself to a younger person has changed and evolved over the years, right? The first, I spent a lot of my time buying and selling domain names early on before crypto really took off. And just like in crypto days, there would be 15, 16-year-olds with millions of dollars that the parents didn't know about. Now they're probably like 13-year-old kids, but, like, and so, I mean, you had to have perspective to talk to them. And understand kind of their mindset is totally different than anything that you're looking at and doing. And so if you
100%.
don't understand them a little bit, then you have no, fortitude to talk to them in the proper way. And so I think it does go a little bit both ways. I mean, they have to be encouraged to listen, and a lot of them will once they build up a little trust. You can't just talk down to them. You can't, you're not the master of everything, right? Because they just made $1 million at 16, where you're still grinding, at 30, right?
Yeah.
And so, you have to have that mindset to say like, cool, you guys are doing awesome things. Like, I want to learn more about you also, because that's amazing. Yeah. And two, like, I have some cool insights that actually would help you if you're like willing to listen to that also. I don't have all your energy and your millions of dollars when you were 16, because I didn't have that. But like, there's probably some insights that will make you some more money quicker, right? Because you have everything going for you right now that I didn't have.
Yeah. And just another beautiful insight, which is listen both ways. And exactly what we're doing here, right? It's the art of listening. It sounds simple. I think it's one of the hardest things humans have problems with, is just listening, and then not only listening, but then interpreting what you heard to make meaningful or a follow-up question that's relevant, right? That sounds simple, but people have a hard time with that. Back to this generations things of why I want to do this is because I want to listen to the younger, because I am blown away every time I had this guy Exceed from K's. It's kind of like a relatively more hyped project coming up about what it's like. They're calling themselves the Web3, the banners of Web3. Dude, this dude was in his early 20s. He might be mid-20s now, but to your point, had made multiple like 6-figure a month reoccurring revenue companies that started at like the age of 14 or 15. And I got through that conversation, and I got to the part where I got a little caught off. I was like, okay, so now we're going to go on to episode 2. And he's like, well, episode 2 is kind of like my high school. And I'm like, holy shit, like I wasn't even thinking about this. But the knowledge that I got from him was incredible. And so if we do have these conversations and treat each other with respect, dude, the opportunities are endless. You have smashed episode 1. I mean, like I said, we could probably talk for 4 more hours just on episode 1. But I know you are a CEO and you've got a ton of things going on. We all do. So I want to start transitioning. I will ask one more thing, and then you can tack on to anything else that you want to talk about this period of life. And we get into high school and college next, which is one thing we really haven't talked about, and your answer might be not any. Were there mantras or themes like I talked about in the beginning of like work hard or be kind and pay it forward? Or did you more just kind of get those inherently from your parents by just watching them do? Or were they more of here's some messages you need to learn about life? Any thoughts there?
I mean, it was more just, there was no like wording or mantras. It was more, watching and listening. It's like the old mindset, right? You're not naturally born racist or anything like that, right? You have to learn that, right? And your family teaches you that, and the people around you. And to step out of that, sometimes you have to get that. And so, I mean, I may have grown up in a 99.99%, white high school, but like, just because of that, I'm not racist, and like, I'm willing to accept all people and do everything. And so, I mean, a lot of that was our family background, and it's, I mean, who I met along the way changed a lot of the things, evolved my thinking on a lot of things. And so, I think it's really cool to, just take that mindset, and my family instilled that on us. And so,
no, but thanks
for you though. So that'll end on.
What you're saying is that's not how all Iowa is, but that is how your Iowa was?
My Iowa.
Like your Iowa of being like, because I feel like if I
Iowa
go
is
to high school
area, right? So, we're here, so I can go into it a little bit.
Yeah.
When I was in high school,
Whatever you're comfortable with. by the way.
Yeah, you're good. When I was in high school, we went to majority white high school, or I did. We had two black guys. They were on a basketball team with me, so we were friends. Only two people in the school, right? The town was, as Oprah called it, the most racist town in America. Wow. And so heavy Klan presence, which is you don't think of much in the North as much, right? And Oprah came to town. There's cross burnings everywhere.
Jeez.
So right. So you look at where you're centered and where you grew up, and my friends were like, a couple black guys, like an Asian dude, a big short Jewish kid, and like we're like the United Benetton of like kids, and like you're the kid you want to like put on your college, front of the college pamphlet brochure. But like, that changes you, right? And so we weren't the biggest, it's a farm community, but
right. You know what I heard you say though, because I actually have a similar experience. Now I wasn't as rural as you, but there were like 2 black kids at my school, right? I was all 99%. I was like white suburbia to the T. But you make a very good point. And I think that, take away the topic of racism or whatever. This is just for a mindset in general, which is what I think the key point is, and take away from this is you just have to learn with an open mind. But to your point, the reason why your perspective was different was because of the people that you surrounded yourself to help raise you, right? And especially when you're a parent, you quickly then realize how crucial these messages are, because it really does formulate them at a younger age. And my parents were the same way. My mom was the one person that had a daycare, and we had kids from all nationalities. But what I remember from her was be kind, pay it forward, and just love people for who they are. And that is such a critical message. And I think the world just needs to understand this more. Like, I get there's thousands of years of hatred and animosity and horrible things that have gone on. But the only way you can progress and get better is just to treat people like you would, like the golden rule, man. Golden principle. Golden rule just goes down to the golden rule. I don't know what else to say around that.
So just to close it out, one thought, like, my grandma like was probably more openly racist than a lot of people in the world, what you would consider like today. Super liberal, like JFK person, which is odd. Like, so dichotomy of like super racist, but also like JFK person, which is very open. And so then, but at the core, like she spent 4 nights a week, helping to teach, poor inner city kids how to read for no money. And so, you look at and did church goods and went to a church that wasn't in a white neighborhood. It was in a poor with a mixed congregation. And so, sometimes you get to dig into people a little bit. And so, just to kind of end that, just because at the core they are, there's a lot of good in people still. And with the diverseness and, what we have in society today, there's still such good out there that's like sometimes hidden on this layer of like animosity. And we don't know why that layer is there, but it's okay sometimes to just like poke through that layer.
100%, dude. And I am so glad that you bring this up, because we talk about this a lot on this podcast too, is people, if you think life is all black and white, like right or wrong, it is all grays. That is a great way to picture that exact statement, right? I still am firmly convinced. There's circumstances where people have just gone through such traumatic stuff, they end up being a pretty bad person. Yes, I get that. But in general, I believe everybody has good in them. But it's not that simple. It's very complex. Dude, insane bombs. We've been talking for 40 minutes already. So because you've just had such amazing insights. I really appreciate it, man. Let's do this. Let's just jump to episode 2. We'll use this time to break. We're rapidly approaching 300 people watching. You all have already missed out if you just joined on 40 minutes of just bomb knowledge after bomb, atomic bombs in there too. Come to Abstract, give us some conversation. I've seen some comments. I got some lazy line people out there. Like, retweet, do all the things people need to hear from John because he has some amazing thoughts and amazing mindset. So let's transition into episode 2, brother. Wherever you want to start in the sense of, it could be college, touching a little bit on schooling, or if you want to go straight into like your first couple jobs in entrepreneurship, I'll let you go wherever you want.
Yeah, no, I mean, so college-wise, it's just set the stage a little bit, right? And, I didn't take the SAT or anything like that. In Iowa, you just said you wanted to go and you could go. So I went to University of Iowa, and that's at the time period, right? That time. That's like how different it was, and it's not that long ago, right?
Yeah.
And so, I did that. I went. Iowa at that time, which was beneficial for me, was becoming very much a tech hub, right? And so it was, everybody had computers. We had so many computer rooms at that time, which is standard now, but it wasn't standard then, right? And so everybody is very tech forward and tech friendly. We started building cool stuff. At the same time, I mean, Ashton Kutcher was there. I mean, at Iowa at the same time.
Nice.
We were doing engineering stuff, but that's just like the level of like idea of like entrepreneurship and like that everyone was forming there. He left pretty much at the same time I did because he left to do modeling. I was not a model. I left and moved down to Augusta, Georgia, which brought me to the south, out of Iowa, and then I lived in Augusta for most of my life after that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for most of my life after that. Yeah, I left Iowa. So I was at Iowa for a year and a half, maybe, and then moved to Augusta, Georgia.
I mean, other than the Masters, what is in Augusta?
Nothing. It's like it should be a suburb of another city. It's like the suburb of like, I don't even know the suburb of LA, but like there's probably like some suburb with like only chain restaurants and very little homegrown restaurants.
Irvine.
Irvine. Yeah, something like that, right? And it exists. But the weird thing is like Augusta had some unique aspects that made it still thrive as a town, right? And you could survive on its own because there's really nothing nearby also as far as like big cities. And so, they had a huge military base there. And then they had a lot of a huge medical school and then a couple other universities there that really drove business, and then a lot of factories because, and so
why did you end up in Augusta again?
So my dad called me when I was at Iowa, and he said he's transferring to the John Deere plant in Augusta. Okay. And so I was like, it seems warm because I looked outside and my car was like in 3 feet of snow or like, 10 feet of snow. I don't even know. It was just endless. Yeah. And so I was like, yes, maybe I do want that. And so I left and said, yes, I will move back in with the family. I will go to Augusta and hang out. They ended up only staying like 2 years, and I just stayed there, right? Because at that point, I think I was at that time period of my life. I was like, okay, like I'm like good now. I have like friends here. We had our own apartment and everything. I was like, I'm just going to live here now. I didn't need you guys in the first place. I just wanted to come to Augusta, or I just wanted to come to the warmth. And that's what we did. I stayed there, and I ended up staying there a really, really long time. And so, I like Augusta. I think it's one of those towns that like maybe like Irvine too. It's like where you're capped, right? There's only like so much growth you can have there before you have to like get out and like go to like a bigger city, or like do bigger things, right? Because it's
not quite like Irvine, because Irvine is its own like metropolitan area. But I get what you're saying, right? So at some point, you're like, I know everybody here. I can do all the things I think I can do. I need that next phase. So what was that for you?
Exactly. So I want to say, so most of my time there, I was in a lot of sales. So I started off in a lot of sales jobs. And so in Augusta, then I kind of merged into, I went to the media company there. And the media company was, at the time, it doesn't make sense, right? If you're a tech guy, why would you want to go to a newspaper? The newspaper was heavily expanding into digital growth, right? Because at the time, the CEO and the owner of the company, knew that newspapers are dying, and we need to do that. We need to do something bigger, and we need more tech people. And so they took a chance on me, and I had cool ideas. I did cool things. Eventually, I went from just working for the newspaper. I don't know. I was kind of into the newspaper for a while, right? Because I got addicted to publishing, and like I get addicted to yelling at to stop the presses, right? Because it's such a power to stop this machine that's like takes 30 people to operate and is big as like a football field, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like to make that machine stop because you have to change something on it that can be printed wrong for everybody at their home is like such a power thing.
For sure.
Yeah, it's like, and then being in control of that to like having to like get out of bed and like we got to change something and like run down at midnight and like fix that. And so I did that for a while, and I was like, what am I doing? I got to get back into tech, or get deep entrenched in the tech again. And so I did that. Eventually, I worked for their corporate office, which had 20 newspapers, about I think 400 or 500 magazines, a lot of different websites. And so that's where it got really cool, because a lot of the websites and what they had bought was very like tech forward and tech forward thinking. And so the owner of the company, and his team, the 6 board members, became a lot of my advisors and a lot of my friends. And one of their big investments was they invested in Elon Musk's first company. And so before PayPal, before all the other stuff, when he did
what was the first company? I don't know this.
It was like a little yellow pages, online digital yellow pages directory business. And so, they all knew Elon and had his phone numbers and everything. And I used to always be the thing of like, if I could get him drunk enough, we could text Elon and screw around. But so it made all more sense to everyone later. They're like, oh wow, so you are at the forefront of tech. You just had to get through all the the newspaper muddle over a couple of years, and then all of a sudden you're deep ingrained in it. And so at that point, that's where they kind of gave me the opportunity. They're like, we need to take responsibilities away from you and just give you blank check to do what you need to do and create new things. And so that's what I did. And so I traveled around to all the different markets. I did market research with small business. I figured out what problems I could solve on a grander scale through the internet, through the technology, and find better ways to do business. All in all, my passion at that time was not tech. It was to save the newspaper, right? For some reason in my mind, I had this belief of I physically myself, my person, could save the newspaper industry because I believed in the free press and I believed that we could do it. And I said, and I took on that responsibility. And my only way that I knew how to do it was through tech. And so if I can find millions and millions of dollars in daily revenue for each one of these newspapers, then they can print and do articles and do free press and make it really super cool, right? And so I don't know, I probably don't have that belief anymore that could work, but
I don't think it can work. Cool. Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, the advent of AI, it's all, I honestly, I don't even know what to believe anymore at this point. That's the problem. That is the new version of free press in my mind, is how do you create a truth source? A pulse, a truth pulse, right? And there are publications out here saying hey, this is how we're going to rank this article based on here are their contributors. Here are, what their traditional backgrounds are. This is what they're writing about. Someone that figures that out is interesting, and people are trying to figure that out. That's a kind of a version of it when it comes to at this is not free press. It's what can you believe and what's true? Which is crazy. Question though, because we started getting into this, I think this could be a great insight for people that are stuck in corporate America, maybe don't like their jobs, or just in an ecosystem and are looking to progress. Because what I heard you say is you were working at the newspaper, but you were still attracted by tech, and you were using your passion as tech to try to save something you love, And was it just that your bosses saw that like passion for the newspaper to give you this blank check in this new job? Or looking back, are you think there are things that you did to allow yourself to get that opportunity? Because I think there's some insights and maybe lessons you could share of how do you start growing and how do you start getting to yourself and getting these opportunities? Or do you think it's just all dumb luck looking back? I don't think that's the answer.
No, so it's one of those things that, I hustled a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so to appear on people's radar, right, you have to be in their circle sometimes, and especially in Augusta and some cities, you have to, if you can't just become a corporate person in certain companies, you have to be at the same parties, right? And they're like, you become a normal person, and they're like, oh wow, like you are like somebody that is fit in, can do stuff here. And so, that's just one of those things where I started to hustle, and, I overspent on credit cards and did a lot of things to try to get in, and donated to charity and went to the same parties, went to the galas that I had no right being to, but I appeared there, right? I hustled my way in. But then once you hustle your way in, you got to be able to walk the talk, right? I had to be able to build the algorithms to like help advertising. I had to be able to, do all the cool things, imagine, figure out things, talk to every single real estate agent in the city to figure out how to better predict a house that's going to come on the market, what factors and what avenues before anybody was even thinking of those things. And then do the same thing with automobiles and do all those things. How can I find money to save the newspaper, right? So I don't know. I think just once, I don't know, maybe they just like talking to me.
Well, I think you, I think you gave a great insight, which is you need somehow, and this isn't necessarily your version of like, you got to show up to the gala, but there is something said to be physically present and be seen by people of wherever you want to be. And if that is, and a version of this is, let's say we're talking corporate America, you just kind of accidentally show up to the meetings that you're interested in, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's the worst that they're going to say? No, you leave. Most of the time, they're not even going to realize you're there. And now you're starting to build a presence because someone saw your name. And it's the same difference. As I think you're absolutely right. And the last thing that you said, which I will interpret as like, maybe they just like talking to you. There is a sense of, you have to have some type of charisma. And I think people interpret charisma as like this, like, naturally magnetic person. I think you could be like an introvert nerd person and still have charisma. And the charisma comes from you're interesting, and you can attract people because they want to talk to you because you have something interesting to say. And
That's
so I think those are the two things I heard. Any additional thoughts?
No, that's 100% right. It's, you say, I think one of the first things you said was dumb luck, right? Sometimes, like, right, it could be that. Yeah. But sometimes it's not, right? You have to put yourself in the right place at the right time. When I look back on a lot of things I did is, I positioned myself to be the first person in the office every day, right? Which is a lost skill because nobody goes to the office anymore. Right. But I was the first person there. I didn't know the president of the newspaper at the time was an ex-military guy and would get there at 6 a.m. But I had my mission, and so I was still beating him there every morning. So that's why he would give me the Wall Street Journal, and that's why he teach me how to read it, and that's why he recommended me to go to corporate, and everything else worked its way out because he saw the hustle in me, right? And so, and then you have to back it up, man. Just keep having insights. And for people out there, I mean, it's really just dropping those things. Like, spend some time doing some research, solve a problem at your company, like, right, and then do it on your spare time. And then send it to somebody and just say, hey, like, I looked at this problem on my spare time, and I kind of became, a passion of mine on the weekends to like try and figure this out and try to better help you. You may think it's nothing. It may be something, I could be reaching, but here you go. Just take a look at it, drop a read in your spare time and let me know. Hey, what's the worst they can say? Like, you did extra free work. Like, don't ever do that again.
Yeah. Yeah. I just had this random tangent. And as we go through this, thank you for sharing all of this. Again, I want to make sure, do you have a hard stop? Because we have about 20 minutes left. Okay. I want to make sure we get a good chunk on Lazy Lions and the Web3. Okay. But there's still a couple beautiful things here. this is a random tangent though I want to talk to, because about this hustle and the grind, my guess is I'm kind of dealing with it myself now, and I don't know if I have a perfect answer other than just find a new ecosystem. But you deal with difficult people along the way. If you're surrounded by difficult people and difficult circumstances, at what point in your mind do you draw the line to say, I probably just need a new ecosystem, or I'm going to, beat my head against the wall and try to create change? Like, I'm interested in this kind of these difficult times and how you in your past have reacted to stuff.
Yeah, right. Because at some point, like you would think there's no saving the newspaper, right? Because it was a problem that can't be solved, right?
Yeah.
Or they don't listen, right? It doesn't make sense to them why in 2018 you say there's this magical coin that you can like attach to comments, and the more they comment, you could reward them more, and the more truth in their comments, you could reward them more.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense to them, and so it's like, why am I beating my head around this thing that I know could save them, right? And know they could do better when they're not willing to accept it right now, right? And so, it's sometimes you have to walk away, or you have to change the circle, right? And change the circumstances. There's a different way or a better way to do it. And in my way, it's eventually I grew out of that position where it's like, I can't fix this anymore. I've already, created some different companies for them. They've done well. I've brought a lot of investments for them. They made tons of money. It was time to figure something else out, right? Because if they didn't want to adopt crypto, like there's a way to do it, right? And so, it was the best way to like leave at that time and change the scenery, and not find somebody who listens to you, like, right? Because you don't want yes people around you, right? Or bosses that only say yes, right?
Yeah.
And I think a little bit at the end, like they gave me too much of that, right? And so they were like, because they didn't understand it. And once you realize that they don't understand it, then you're like, got it. Like you're never gonna get it, and that's fine. We just have to go in different directions at that point then, because it's above like the level. I've done what I can to try to make you understand it, but that's just a losing fight, right?
Yeah. And I think again, I'm just kind of get at like you looking at those different scenarios, and not just the newspaper, other things in life.
Sure. Yeah.
What do you have any thoughts or references or advice to people to say, like, what do you look for when you're like, you know what, maybe it is time to change it up or switch the page? Like, what are the thoughts or advice in your head of maybe indicators where you're like, well, you just gave one, right? When they're just saying yes all the time because they don't understand. You got anything else there?
Yeah, I mean, it's you look at your position, you evaluate where you're at and what you're doing. One, do you have the passion? Does it make you happy? Like in my example, like when you looked at doing that stuff on the weekend, you're trying to move up, right? Is this, something when you submitted that and you gave them that extra work and like that extra insight that you like worked on, that like you were passionate about at the time, how they accepted that and when their response to it defines a lot of, are you in the right environment, right? If they rejected it and said like, don't ever do this again, like what, like I don't know, I would begin to question about what am I doing, right? Because I found something I'm super passionate about and I did it on my spare time. I'm gonna like really push into that. How can I lean into that more? What companies can I do that? How would I approach them? How would I want to work with them? And where can I do that? And so, that's, you have to find that. And if you can find that, you're just so much happier and so much better in life. And then, you know what? You'll really enjoy the touching grass, because like you can take that moment and breathe, right?
Yeah, dude, love that context. Beautiful insight there. All right. Anything in the episode 2 before we spend some time in Web3? And again, just recapping really, maybe 1, even 2, if you want to, more kind of like really aha moments in your entrepreneurship journey. We just talked about a bunch of things. 1, being in the right circles, putting yourself out there, in this example that's dated now, like you said, but there are versions of it in the new world, which is getting to the office earlier so the CEO saw you. Like that's huge, right? And then also knowing when it's time to stop because you're starting to beat your head against the wall and you got a bunch of yeses. Anything else you want to layer there, or you feel good about that and want to transition to Web3?
No, I feel good there. I mean, I think, it's I looked at all of it as like such a great opportunity. And so look at everything you do as an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
Listen to people. Part of what made me great is listening to all the real estate agents, talking to people, and then listening. Like most of what I did is like I just interviewed people, figured out the best way to fix and advertise their business, and built a solution for it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Perfect, man.
Keep hustling,
man. What's up?
Just keep hustling.
Yes. Just keep hustling. Well, I mean, there were so many learning lessons in those first 2 episodes. Now we're going to get to Web3. Again, like you see why we do here, John, is now I have such a deeper understanding about you as a human being. I want to go see the masters with you. Like I want to do all of these things. And now we're actually going to get to talk about Web3. So me and the hundreds of people that are watching have context of you as a human being is and what you're about to do with Lazy Lions. And does that experience give you the ability to kind of pull off what we're about to talk about? Because a lot of times I hear in this people in these spaces, man, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And they have no context into anything they're trying to pull off, which makes it exponentially harder. So thank you for sharing all of that. I'll also use this time, people. We'll be well over 100, 300 people here watching here quickly. Just come on over to Abstract. I have 2 people watching on Abstract. I don't understand why everybody watches on freaking Twitter. And obviously YouTube makes sense to me, but then nobody comes over to Abstract, because if you just go to Crypto Twitter timeline, all you hear about is Abstract streaming. So I don't know if it's me or if it's it's very difficult for you guys to click a link. I have no clue, man. Never made sense to me. But retweet, like, do all of those things. We're going into episode 3. So let's get the TLDR on your holy shit, I found these crypto coins, or I found NFTs, whatever it was, I'm excited. And then really how you first found the Lazy Lions brand.
Yeah, no, I mean, 2017, I started poking around. I was deep ingrained on new things, finding new avenues, right? Mm-hmm. Part of my job was finding new tech that I can invest in. And so, I found that. It was super cool. I was deep into Bitcoin, all that type of stuff. I bought some NFTs 2017, end of 2017. Got rugged, right? Figured out it was a Russian scam. See, everything existed back in the day. In the early days, everybody should have learned, and we should have had more teachings for people. But it didn't really work out. And so, but something grew out of that, right? And, it's the chats were Discord a little bit, but a lot of it was Reddit, and the Reddit group of people that got scammed on that 2017, they're still there. Mm-hmm. And so I learned something out of that there's like a community of people that grew out of that. And that community is something that is worthwhile, right? Yeah. In my career, I looked at a lot of different communities, and we bought communities, right? Original marketing to get the best efforts. We would buy Facebook groups secretly. We would just pay off the person who owned the group so we could mine all their data and remarket to them, right? And so the Facebook group would operate normal, but we just wanted the community. And so when we look at all of a sudden, now I found a new community that was engaged, was spending, $500,000-$600,000 on some intrinsic value of these tanks that we had no idea if they could do anything or not. It was just a promise or the idea that maybe it would be a game, and we all rallied around that. That sounded exciting. We wanted to use our Ethereum to do cool stuff, and this guy said, yes, I'm going to do cool stuff with these. And I'm like, yes, I will give you my Ethereum. Do cool stuff with these images. And our baseline understanding of that in 2017 was yes, this sounds awesome. Let's just do that. Do it. And and so the community formed, and then it was just kept releasing more. And I was like, oh wow, now we have planes, and now there's ships. It's tanks, planes, and ships. This is a real war game. Like, you just keep coming out with these images. Like, yes. And like, here's more Ethereum. And like, no, they were just like taking money. And then it's like, oh, he built a marketplace. We can buy and sell our tanks. Yes, this is what we wanted. And like, no, it was like the scam before like it became normalized. And like 5 years later, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I learned a lot back then. I want to say like, 2018, maybe 2019, I forget, something like that. I just parked all my crypto. Like, I loaded it all in Binance or something, so a bunch of different exchanges, KuCoin or OKCoin. I don't know what it was. A lot of different coins. I was like, I'm just kind of tired of this right now. And so I parked it all. I didn't open it until 2021. I got into Top Shot reluctantly. I read the TechCrunch article on Roham. I saw it was coming out. I got in the beta test. I bought a bunch. So I bought a bunch early, of course. And like, it became worth a lot of money. I was like, wow, like that's just instantly a bunch of money out of nowhere. I didn't really consider it crypto yet, right? It was just like this weird thing. And, so we did that. And like, and I was like, well, then I was like, I think, didn't you do crypto like years before? I think those are worth a lot of money too now. And so I was like, yeah, it might be. I don't know. I should go check. And like, yeah, it was. And like, so
what was the collection?
Like, no, not the whole NFT collection, just the
the crypto that you're just chilling, waiting.
Yeah, I just like I literally forgot it existed like a lot of times, which is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to buy it, put it in an account, and just kind of like leave it there, right? Or like you're supposed to self-custody it actually, but like I still had it on chains, and it was a pain in the ass to get out. Let me tell you like that, because I was an American citizen and like trying to get out coins out of Binance, who like was before Binance, the US version, and so pain to like try to get it out, but eventually it did. And I think I used that money to buy more Top Shot, which was dumb, but like anyway. So that was cool. And then, I bought a company, and a domain name and a company like 5 or 6 years ago before. So it was like probably 2015. But part of that company, they had, I want to say 400 old original Twitter accounts or X accounts. And so I had like 300 one-word X accounts. And so at the time I found a buyer and he paid me a bunch of Bitcoin, because you're not supposed to sell your X accounts. And I sold a bunch of them. I took all that money. I was like, it's free money, and bought a bunch of Bored Apes, and made even more money. Right?
I want to cut in here, because I always have the people that are like, you know what? I had 1,000 Bitcoin and I spent it on whatever. You are now talking to one of the few guys that transitioned this into actual wealth, which is really, really cool. But it brings up my question, which is that in this scenario, do you think you attribute a lot of it? My guess would be you were just really excited about being early to tech, and you were dabbling at the right times, and then you just kind of smartly forgot about it? Or is there something else there about you being early and buying a bunch of Bored Ape and Top Shot and then just setting all this money in crypto? Any trends there? Any thoughts on how I think what I'm getting at is the percentage of luck opposed to you being early and kind of knowing what you were doing?
I look back at the messages a lot, because I was in some Top Shot Discord groups, and with a lot of like big people, and like the messaging I got was like, Bored Apes are done, like it's not worth doing that at the time, because I didn't mint them. But I bought when they were like, I don't know, $500, $600, maybe 1,000, but like so I mean, I think at that point it was just belief in the community. I don't know. It's a weird thing to say, like, right? But like
Right.
at that point, there was a lot of excitement, and like I kind of feel it. I mean, I'm good at talking to people. I'm good at listening, and I'm willing to read and do research, right? And so, you can say luck all you want, but I sat there and listened and looked at everything, and
Yeah.
I was like, I think you guys are wrong. I think there's actually something here that's bigger than what you think it is.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of crazy things happened, that like, I was there for, but like, I saw a lot of behind the scenes things that made apes what they are today.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean,
No,
a lot of people missed on it because of that.
right. And so you say two things here. One, I love your response of, and this is again why people get into trouble they get into is they don't, like, you have already proven you will do research, you will put the work into something, especially if you're going to spend your hard-earned money on something that at least has a chance. You're the type of mentality that it's just not always gonna, something like that is not just dumb blind luck. There is actually some thought put into it. So I think that is a really important message. Hence why we're doing what we do here now, is because if you are not a personality like yourself, you are pretty hard pressed to actually put in the work to understand that. The second thing you said that I'm more interested in, and this could be a touchy subject in the sense that how much you want to reveal, but even in Bored Ape and the things that are happening right now, I don't think people understand how much movement is made behind closed doors. And there are people in secret war rooms having conversations to push and move things. And that is a reality. And I think people think people are lucky. And I think a lot more things are calculated than people realize. How much can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I was like second level to like a lot of things, but like, I knew that there's going to be some heavy movement, and there's going to be millions of dollars of buys, Bored Apes, and there's going to be huge sweeps happening, very shortly.
Right.
I was privy to a lot of the conversations and privy to a lot of like the information being shared that, a lot was going to happen. I think they a group borrowed, like $5 or $10 million. I forget the amount. On like Thursday on loan, and paid it back on like Monday. And so I mean, I knew a lot of stuff was going to happen, and the market was going to move, and I think that catapulted it from like a 3 ETH to like a 15 ETH, right? Because that started like a movement that was unstoppable at that point. Mm-hmm. And so it's those little things that like people like don't know sometimes, right? Yeah. And it's being on the position I'm in now, like I see a lot of things, and I'm like, why do we have to have all these secret meetings? Like, why can't we just do it on X? And like, things will naturally like happen. Like, let's just do this like real economics people, right? We can figure this out.
And so that is actually following into my segue of you being in 2017 until now. Why do people in this space still go for the scam? Is it just the false hope that these lottery tickets still exist and that the majority of the information they're seeing is fake and false? Or is there something I'm missing? Because the fact that today, literally tomorrow, a hype project could come out that is totally scammed if they had the right people, the right place, and the right messaging, could totally F people, still exists this much later on. What is going on? Why does that still exist? Is it just human greed?
It is a little bit. I mean, you want to be, the grass is always greener, right? You want what somebody else has. Why do they get it and I don't, right? That mentality. Mm-hmm. And so it's rather difficult to like to really get away from, right? Because that craving and the desire to like get more, right? You see, especially on X and TikTok and everything else, you see it constantly, like the interviews of the day are, what did you do to earn your wealth? And like everybody wants to understand like where you did that. I don't know. Yeah. Sometimes you just got to hustle. Like, don't think you're just going to get it in 1 $20 mint. Like,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of times, like, you know, I made more money on, you know, buying really cheap things and reselling them, right? And
Yeah.
like on NFTs especially, like
Yeah.
buying like $20 ones and selling them for 100.
Yeah.
You do that 100 times, you like have a lot more money.
Yeah.
It's not about finding that one thing. It's, you know, looking for the great things out of the jungle, like, right? 'Cause it's all animals, so it's a jungle. And like finding the cool things and finding the place that's going to stick and be something in society, right?
And the advice to people that are newer to this space are still just like completely like confused as to how to do that, how to do the research. Is it as simple as finding the right people to follow on Twitter and then doing a double click down on who are the actual founders, what are their previous success, what are their actual business models and strategies? Or is there something else I'm missing there? Like, what is your advice on how you approach research right now?
Yeah, exactly. Well, one, you want to make sure the founder is just not a scammer, right? And so that's like a fundamental basis. I think we're still too far down the rabbit hole of like finding out what they do and how good they are at. I don't know. Sometimes, most of the time, that doesn't matter, right? Right. I think credentials are washed up sometimes.
Well,
And
talk to me a little bit more about that. I'm interested in that. Why?
well, I mean, it's like Gordon Goner and all those guys. They're just writers. You know, they're good guys with imaginations, and that's not a resume. You know, that's not something famous that they did. The people that, you know, are most hated in Web3 are the people with the biggest degrees and the web, you know, the VC funds and everything, right? All those guys, you know, created companies and like crashed them in the real world and then came to crypto. They have the resume built up. It makes perfect sense. They should create something great. Moonbirds should be the greatest thing in the world. Moonbirds wasn't only cool once, you know, they kind of left and it became the community, right? And Moonbird still isn't super cool, but it's at least it's, you know, people are still there in the community, right? And so, you know, I think it's who you're around, right? Because if you see somebody else and you want to be friends with that person and they're in a community, like join that community and be friends with that person. And then like hopefully there's other people like that. And if there's other people like that, then the community is going to be cool and the community is going to last. That's worthwhile. That's worth something more than the $1 million you'll make, because you might find something there that could make you $1 million or $2 million. Or I don't know, you just made a friend. And like sometimes that's pretty priceless, right? And somebody that you can hang out with, right? It's a lot of the people in crypto and X are like, some of us are introverts, you know, or like, you know, people that don't know how to talk to a lot of people. I mean, I love my computer. I can become addicted to it and I could not talk to anybody. I spent years of my life not talking to people. The most person I would love to talk to was the person at the grocery store. I went to the grocery store every day just because I could talk to a person. That's how we are sometimes, right? And so like you need that companionship, and find that in NFTs, and then communities, whether it's, you know, even in meme coins, find that, and like, yeah, you'll have a lot of fun and you'll do a lot of cool things. And when you shill it that way, like shill it like that way, not that you're going to make $1 million. Like the best way to do it is just quite simply like, I have good friends here. I want you to be my friend too. Like, come on.
Dude, I love that angle. That's a fantastic piece of content right there. And obviously though, even this simple thing that you said started off with is, dude, if you do one amount of research, like one set of research here, people, just figure out if they're a scammer or not. Now, that can be a hard thing to do because it's easy to start multiple accounts. It's easy to go under different pseudonyms, but sometimes it's not that difficult to follow the breadcrumb trail, right? And if you're not good at it, use freaking some people in your network and community to do that. Any other advice there? And then we'll get the ladies of the lines.
Yeah, I'll say the best thing that can happen is if the community learns that they're a scammer later, you still have tons of friends and they're more entrenched together in hatred of one person then they're combined now. You have an army that's like at your disposal now. You're now worth more as a collective group than you were previously when you believed in this NFT. Your project now you can do so much. Now you're an army of people if you're another NFT project or another meme community and you see somebody get rugged, say, you guys are a collective group. What can I do to entangle you to like come over here? Because you guys are an army of people with hatred for one person. I want your army as part of my army. Like you guys, you can come over here and we'll do cool things. I don't know. It's just like,
I agree.
I love that. They're powerful. There's power in that struggle.
Yeah. I think there's power in the struggle, and there's power in there's a lot about debate about community all the time, has been for years. And I like the simple take, because I don't think there's a lot of people that just is like, find the people who you want to be your friends. You know, it can be as simple as that. I think you put it in a great layman term, and I think that's an effective strategy for some people to utilize. I do think there's a whole nother spectrum that we could talk about for hours, which is you as a CEO. Now, how do you, because I still think it's one of the most fundamentally powerful things of building a company in Web3, and why you would do it is because of a community, but activating it appropriately aligned to your business strategy and figuring out those nuances of when to listen and when not to listen have not fully been untapped yet or effectively utilized. There obviously has been some people like Pudgy got a good job with the community and the memes and creating the fervor there. But I think there's so much more to unlock and untapped. Any thoughts there? Do you want to kind of use that as a segue into Lazy Lions?
No, yeah, no. I mean, I think it kind of segues both ways, right? And so we look at, Pudgy, I knew Cole, the original owner, right? And we shared a Discord of owners, founders, big money people.
Yeah.
And like, well, he's just a normal guy. I never really disliked him, or I was never in Pudgy's though, so it's like I never really had hatred for him or anything. But like, he just was young and made weird decisions, and I think he didn't know how to acknowledge and talk about that. But he did a really good thing to sell it at the time, and Luca found something really good. I mean, he had a lot of backing and a lot of money, so I mean, makes it really, really easy. And so like, not everything can be like that. I mean, he already had like a stacked deck, right?
Yeah.
So he was rolling into the poker tournament with 4 aces in his pocket. But like, and he had a good key brand. Like that's like, as a marketing person, like you love that. Like, give me money and you have a cute thing that sells. That's super easy. But I don't know. I lost my point there, probably. Sorry. But like,
so it was really about agreed. And I think this is one of the things where people overcompensate for the genius behind the activation of Pudgy community.
Exactly.
And this is my point.
They combined, right? Like that's that power, like, right? Luca recognized that power of
they combined, right? Yeah. But there's a lot of narrative out there that it was like, oh, it was all the Pudgy community that drove this. And it's like, no. He's had millions of dollars, tons of backing, very smart business people at the helm when this transition happened, and they effectively activated the community around there. That's the true power of Web3 and brand in mind. And so my question was, I just think it wasn't a question, it's more a statement to expand upon, is that is one good example, but I think there's so much left on the table with Web3 founders not appropriately activating their community based around their business strategy.
Yeah. That's a lot of what we're building into, like, right? Because I think it's a universal problem, and it's hard to do, and it's hard to activate. Everybody, I'll bridge it into Lazy Lions a little bit. Everyone wants to use their IP, right? It's the fundamental goal. Like, right? You see Luca, I can get into Walmart. My sister is the vice president of Walmart. Like, I know exactly what Pudgy Penguins does, and like I know margins. I know everything, right? And so like I have more power to get into Walmart than really most people in Web3.
Yeah.
But I'm not in Walmart because it doesn't make any sense a lot of times. And, I'm not going to raise money, or, I haven't been able to raise money to throw some Lazy Lions in there because it doesn't make sense. Like, right. Yeah. I didn't go into it with all that backing or with all that power. Yeah. Right. And so we look at it a different way, right? And so if you can't build it like that universal way, right, how can you activate that community in a different way, right? Because it either comes top down from the founders and business, or you enable the community to like grow the business on their own.
Yes.
Problem is, Web2 doesn't like cartoon animals on their products half the time, like, right? Or they don't, nobody's gonna like magically throw $1 million at you and say like, I want you to represent my brand. It never happens. Like there is no, they're like, oh wow, you're the perfect Lacoste alligator. Like, great, thanks. We're gonna give you billions of dollars for your NFT in like perpetuity and like continue to pay you royalties for every single t-shirt ever made. Thanks for existing as a JPEG. That doesn't happen. It won't happen, right? And so we have to find a better way to do that, and we have to effectively do it. And our most valuable asset is not the JPEG itself. Sometimes it's the community around it. Yes. How can we empower that community in a greater aspect to like grow and build a brand in a better way, in a more efficient way? It rewards the whole community. It doesn't reward an individual, it rewards the community, and they can still be empowered and still use their NFT in amazing, cool ways. But the brand can use it in a different way to be more effective and to enable the community into so much more cool things.
Yep. Dude, that might have been the biggest atomic bomb you just dropped there. Like, because the way you described that, I think, was simple and in layman terms, and gets at the crux of the problem here, which is, and this is what happened with Hate Beast, right? In the beginning. Oh, Supreme partnership. This is always happening. This is it. And it's like, dude, one, Supreme does not want a 3D picture of a freaking ape. And then two, even that for that were going to happen, guess how long it takes to actually coin a deal with Supreme? Months, a year minimum, right? Like, people, this is not happening a week after Hate Beast mints. And like, these just expectations are so aligned. And even still too, in this day and age, Web3 moves fast, but you still have to figure out how to combine with Web 2.
Yeah.
People need to hear this message more, you know? Like, I don't understand how people can't comprehend this, right? Because it's just the reality of the situation. So let's do that. How did you find Lazy Lions? And why did you, whether willingly or unwillingly, decide to buy this bad boy? And we'll go from there. And then we'll, after, another 10 minutes or so, we'll start winding it down. Does that sound good?
Perfect. No, so early on, when I sold one of my Bored Apes, 30, 40 ETH, I don't know, something crazy. I went in and I liked the Lazy Lions community, so I bought a bunch, right? And when I say bought a bunch, I mean, they were at mint, maybe below. So like, right, a little bit below, so probably at what we're at now.
What did they mint at? I don't even remember.
I think they minted at 0.07. Okay. So I got a bunch of 0.05, 0.06, 0.07, 0.08. And so, I bought a bunch, like, right. The community was cool. I liked them. I got the feeling that I got originally when I was in Bored Ape at the beginning, right? And so they had this fire, they had this togetherness, and they had cool stories, right? And they were looking for things. And when things happened, it became exciting, right? Nice. In every little thing, right? It was just like, this is awesome. Like, community's taking care of it, taking care of people, right? And so everything was there. And so I loved it. I bought tons. I was like, this is my new thing. I still had apes, but like, my thing was Lazy Lions now. And like, I really liked it. And I was just a community member at the time, right? And, I was like, I want to do stuff, like, right? Because I'm a creator. And like, at the time, I was like, I think I was transitioning out of work. And I was like, I don't know what to do with myself, right? And so I was like, I want to dig in. And I was a publisher. I've done things. I was like, I'm going to build some comic books with the Lazy Lions. I talked to writers, I did it. I did all the work. And I said, this is an amazing story. I can create this. And, I talked to a guy who's a former DC guy, and his book is about to be a movie and make billions of dollars now. But like, he was going to do a Lazy Lions comic book with me. And like, it was all set. And then I pitched it to the old owners. I said, this is what I'm going to do. I didn't really pitch it to them. It was more of a, like, this is what I'm doing. They're like, cool, that's awesome. Like, I didn't know you're going to do that. And then like 3 months later, I think they released their own comic book and like did their own thing. And I was like, really want to compete with you guys. So like, if you want to do that, that's cool. Also, I got a bad feeling about them when I met them. And so, yeah, I just left. I started selling off everything. And eventually I totally left. I sold every single one. I think it took a while to sell them all. I want to say I muted the community. I was like, I just didn't want to have that anymore in my life. And so I totally left. Then last November, I got word that they were selling, and I messaged the founders and said, like, shoot me the deal packet when you get it. Let me take a look. I might be interested. I'll put together a team. So yeah, that's what they did. I looked at it. I looked at what they wanted, and I kind of sat on it for a while. Then I joined the Discord again, right? Because I do what I do, right? And so I sat there, and I didn't say a word, but I just had it up on the monitor. I ran like 4 or 5 monitors on my desktop, and like just had it up. I watched the community. I did my research. They were still cool. There's still some vigor there. They were lost, and so. But like anything, they were united and they were angry at the old team, and so I was like, "Cool, yeah, like I can probably work with this." I talked to some other people, talked to some of the bigger holders, and I was like, "All right, cool." So I put my team together. I wrote a plan, sent it off. They were like, of course, because they're horrible to deal with. They were like, "You should probably form an ownership group with the other owner," because they couldn't make a decision between the two groups. They're like, go with like, you guys should just combine into one, which is like not really what we wanted to do, right? Because we each have our own vision, right? It doesn't make sense, like, right? Like you're like, I wrote like all this elite plan, which would have been awesome, but like now we have a combined vision. And like, honestly, like I went to the first meeting and I was like, I don't know about these guys. Like I left and I was like, I don't know. Let me think about it. I don't know if I want to partner with you guys.
Yeah.
Eventually, we talked enough. It was a good group of guys. And eventually we did come together and I said like, all right, cool. Let's just do it. I think this is the only way we're going to get the deal done anyway. Right. And so we'll have to figure it out. And so eventually, we all grouped together. Then it became a lot, like, right, we finalized the deal. It wasn't like the old owners were like still shit to deal with. Like we couldn't get it through like the final hump. Like it was like just endless. It was hard on the other guys, it was hard on me. And like eventually we got through it. Eventually then one of the other co-owners, like he ran into family issues and became difficult. And the pressure of the old owner, like constantly like not giving us everything, arguing with us about every point, just became a lot and too much. And so he kind of dropped out. And we went out with just the 3 of us. And so we've been doing that ever since. It's like a weird congruent thing, right? Where you think about it, like we each had different visions, and then we had 4 visions, like, right? Because it was a group of, it's basically all of us each had our own offers, and then now we're combined to 4, and like kind of loosely had the same ideas, and they're like, you should combine them all. I'm like, it doesn't really work like that. And like eventually we kind of came together, and we're down to 3, like, right? And I think finally after like 8 months, maybe, or like 7 months or something like that, we finally have a baseline, right? Of like, feel like we're stable. We're finally done with like the previous owner, as of a couple of weeks ago.
As like recent, like a couple weeks.
Like we gave them the final. We just the other day we sent them like details, because part of what it's like I don't really care anymore. I'll just talk about it, but like. So we sent him a letter that said, you kept taking money after we were announced as the new owners, because it was supposed to be a joint partnership. We were going to still give him a percentage. We were going to take 80% and he was going to take 20%, right?
Yeah.
And like, he was still taking royalty money and like not giving it to the company. And eventually we said like, that's embezzling. And we gave him a demand letter that like he gets 0% shares now. And so setting us up as for full ownership. And so, you know, eventually like he just was never like let go. And like it was all about money to him. And it finally, like, I don't talk to him anymore. I don't think I'm allowed to talk to him.
I mean, it sounds like I wouldn't be doing that either. And so like, this is my question in this situation, right? For people and founders and that are going through this was that the red flag? Is it simple as that? Is like that a lot of these conversations are always money driven motivators, and like if you find that person, just don't deal with them? Or what are your thoughts or insights there going through this painstaking situation?
You know, you look at it twofold, right? You look at it as a community, like, right? Like how could you not see that? I mean, I met him a couple times and like saw that, saw the type of person he was. So you should be able to see that. I think the people around him should have saw that. I think there was a lot of people that worked for him or were on his payroll who, you know, should have been louder during, not after they stopped getting paid, you know? You know, I think there a lot of things could have been different, but yeah, I mean, all in all, I mean, it was just a bad person and not somebody that was representative of Web3 good. He was looked at, you know, like he thought he was a genius because he came up with like 4 or 5 projects and eventually one caught on. Like, right? You're not a genius. You just got lucky that like the Lions looked cool and it's an iconic brand and like it made sense. And it caught some fire. And you got some Bored Apes in the beginning with a lot of money who bought into the community and pumped it up to 3 ETH. And we made it cool. And then the community made it even cooler. Right. I left, but like the community made it awesome. Like they made whole new things and like huge storylines and did amazing things that like I didn't even think was possible. And that was all the community. That had nothing to do with the owners. And so at that point, just to my point earlier, like again, you should have joined for the community at that time also. Like they were done like years ago. They were just spinning out stuff to take more money from you, but the community was doing tons of cool stuff. And that's what, you know, I looked at it, you know, one of the things I said early on to the team, you know, because eventually when we bought it, I was like, I didn't want to be in charge. I wanted to be a behind the scenes guy. I wanted to do strategy and I wanted to like build things that way. And like, it didn't really work out. And so like, I had to like kind of take charge, but like, you just have to build it out. Sorry, I lost my point a little bit, but like,
no, you're still on the right train of thought.
No, I mean, but like, so once we started to get going, like it's totally different, right? And so now we have this baseline, and we have, you know, the community that's still a little bit fractured, right? Because when they created a Discord, the former owners, of like hatred and like, you know, there's like 600 words you couldn't even say like in the Discord, and then for like financial reasons or their lawyers, it was just BS. And like, so most of the community left. It became like Braveheart, right? And like you had to unite the clans, right? And before they go to battle and like get everybody on the battlefield. If everybody doesn't come, it's not a good battle and you're not going to win, right? And so, you know, at the end of Braveheart, not all the clans came and he died, right? And like, you know, I think that's how NFT communities are. Like a lot of people left and went into their own Discords. They didn't go into like other communities' Discords. Some of them did, but like a lot of them just created their own small groups, and we have these trade groups everywhere. And like, I don't know, that's where they live and they love that. And like, I encourage them and I love that for them. Like they found their friends and they found their friends for life. And like, I think that's amazing. That's like what I preach for. And I want other people to be friends with them too. And so that's kind of like the universal Lazy Lion way. Now my job, you know, is now that we have this foundation and kind of this point, is to say, how can we grow that? How can I enable them more? How can I give them more power? And, you know, how can I reward them and give them more money? Right? Because I'm not safe. I'm not Luca with $5 million that I'm going to throw at you, right? Or like buy into retail shelves. But like, I can deliver something and I can build something. And, you know, we're just getting started, and in this for like a very long haul. And, we've been tirelessly building like tons of different things. A lot of it sucked and failed, but I fail super fast. Like we
Yes.
could have like gave up. And one thing over the last, year that we've been like owners, give or take, I haven't asked for a dime from anybody in any of the community. Like, I built all this on our own. We went through and did taxes. I mean, we spent, $100,000, and like everyone will say, like, they haven't done anything. Well, I don't know. I spent $100,000 building to like get to where we are right now, to where we can still be alive and still have a foundation. And now we can propel and now we can grow.
Yeah.
Whereas before we couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Now that we've exited out of those agreements, now they own a larger percentage. Like now I have some room to maneuver. Before I was splitting a lot of hairs. When a VC comes in, it's going to dilute me down to like 10% ownership of Lazy Lions. That sucks. Like I don't want that. If I want to create something amazing, I want to own a huge chunk of it. And so we needed that. And so all of that is, to say like, what can we do to propel us to the next level? I think we're finally there.
And thank you for sharing that, because like our now comfortability of talking over this time frame was allow you to share, and these are simple things that I'm sure you're sharing with the community, but the broader audience should know too, is like that talks about your character. Like, oh yeah, you don't think I delivered anything, but I spent my hard-earned money to keep this thing afloat and to give you guys opportunity to continue to use this IP and learn and grow. So that's fantastic. And thank you for sharing those insights. I know we've gone long here, bud, but I mean, we're going to have to talk many more times after this. So what I want to do is give me the 2-minute or less elevator pitch of what you're wanting to do with Lazy Lions now, because you didn't want to buy it, but you ended up buying it. I think that's one little nuance before you get to there is, why did you end up actually signing on the dotted line? What was the one thing that kind of pushed you over the edge? Was it as simple as the community?
It really was. And when you look at, well, I guess it was two things, right? So, I mean, I come from a background of buying communities, right, on Facebook and looking at communities, finding value to use that information because I think it's valuable, right?
Yeah.
Because they're ingrained and they're together and they provide tons of value. How can I use that? Buying horse groups, buying groups that buy and sell horses, because there's money to be made on helping them do that better and more efficiently. Yeah. And so when I look at the community now, and I look at communities all over the NFT atmosphere, like what can I do to not only help Lazy Lions, but help them also? Because there's money to be made in these communities that nobody's tapping into. Everybody's leaving that out there. And there's this gap in the marketplace. And the gap is one of the things that I love to explore and I love to exploit and really like find that, Yeah. When I look at
it's all right, man. The background noise is not I can barely hear it.
Okay, cool. But yeah, no, it's one of those things like what we want to do is we're building, a brand to unite the NFT communities in a new fundamental system to work with Web2 companies. And we're building that at an efficient scale. And we're building that across chains. And so one of the things we look at, we're not stuck in the Ethereum world. We're expanding to Ape Chain. We're expanding to Abstract. We want to empower every NFT community to be better, because I believe it's not a top-down strategy. It's not working with Adidas. It's not working with, these giant brands like McDonald's or Casio watch, wherever else Doodles did. But there's bigger opportunities in small business, and small business is my passion. And there's an opportunity there that we can partner with and then grow businesses on a monumental scale with communities. And that's what we're doing with Lazy Lions, and that's what we're building for. Along the way, we have tons of cool stuff. I'm still working on close, but the close and all of that go together on this fundamental system because all of it works together. If I can empower the community with digital enabled close to not only sell themselves and sell the community, but also sell merchandise for other CPG goods, we can do that. It's not about putting your lion on a product. It's about enabling the consumers to find your product better and using the community to help advertise that product more efficiently and actually grow the brand. We can take a brand from like a small distribution point and expand that nationwide, expand that into a greater aspect. And that's what we want to do with Lazy Lions, and that's what we're building. And we're building that software now. We have tons of VCs banging in our door, and like a lot of different chains. We're talking to so many different chains. It's like wearing you out. But like, we're like on the cusp of like greatness, and like, you know, I can like taste it sometimes. And you know, we have some cool IP stuff, and like we do all the little partnerships, and you know, I vouch for all these things. I mean, I want to say I don't think a lot of people did a lot of the things that, you know, I told people to do, but you know, I made $5,000 or $6,000 just off small $100 trades on the things and the partnerships that we did. I think I spent $300 and turned that into like 5,000 just by doing small trades along the way.
Yeah.
So I want to say like people got value over the last year. Now they're like really going to get more value as we kind of deliver the next phases and the next steps.
And so I'm gonna try to use an analogy because I'm gonna be a marketing guy too. What you just described to me, tell me if I'm way off here, is almost enabling the concept of Facebook groups, right? Which are groups are kind of these local communities of people that believe in something, but using Web3 and the Lazy Lion brand to enable that kind of structure for small to medium businesses to what? To sell something, to proliferate the Lazy Lions brand, or is it
No, so you look at
agnostic?
Yeah, you look at brand agnostics at a time, like, right? So there's different levels to what you can do, right? And so, you know, CPG is largely stuck in the past, right?
Yeah.
Everything's stuck in these like old school rules, right? You burn capital on ads, you know, you pay for reach,
right?
You know, you borrow money at expensive interest rates.
Me as a content creator it's still reach and impressions, all bullshit vanity metrics, like not like, hey man, I am actually creating top tier content. You should value that more than a click, right?
Exactly.
Same thing.
There's value in everything we do, and it needs to be monetized properly and efficiently to like produce actual good things.
Yeah.
And so it's funding, it's growth, and it's a way to monetize efficiently and sell those things at a better way.
Gotcha. And so, but doing this at a local level, and how does Lazy Lions, other than the tech that you're building, enable that? Is it because if I'm interpreting this right, then Lazy Lions IP kind of become secondary than this like new business model that you're trying to reinvent via community. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah. So what we would do is there'll be a couple different new companies, right? And so Lazy Lions will own part of those.
Gotcha.
And so part of it is enabling the community to own a lot of things, right? So it's not a simple thing to say like, I know Hans does something where you own part of the community. Eventually Lazy Lions will be given back to the community, and there'll be full ownership of it, like the brand and the IP. You know, it's, you know, I'm just a steward right now guiding the community, and eventually, like, you know, I'll put them in a place where they'll be in a spot where they can be great, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's finding that spot.
Gotcha. That makes total sense. All right, man. So here we do. I always ask one final question. I'll give you a chance the next 3 to 6 months, or however much you want to divulge or reveal about what's to come. And then I'll give you my closing comments and we'll call it a day. Dude, we've only been talking for 2 hours. We need many more conversations, but this has been beautiful, amazing. I really appreciate your insights. So what are those next 3 to 6 months that you want to share? If not anything, it's totally cool too.
No. So the next 3 to 6 months, shortly, we have an ape chain project coming out loosely.
Nice.
We're finalizing now. I have some cool stuff, some AI companies that we're working on. So those are kind of the short term. Long term, the bigger projects, we'll have a roadmap for that shortly, that will kind of show you and give everyone the idea of that. We're working on that video right now to explain that. But that's kind of the fundamental thing. Once people learn, you know, what Lazy Lions is for the long term and kind of what we're building and how we're getting there, you know, and there'll be stages, right? And so that's really the fundamental aspect that we're really focused on, and that will be released shortly. I think we're like 45 days to 2 months away from like releasing the full details of that, of how we're doing it, why we're doing it, and what it's going to do for everybody. And so, once people see that, it kind of changes the idea and the aspect of what Lazy Lions is and what they can do. So
love it, man. And so, kind of winding down, the last thing I ask here is, so we had an intro call. You have now gone through the podcast part of the experience. Please give me a review compared to the other Web3 things that you've experienced. So you've probably been on a million spaces. You've been in Discords. What was the value that you felt like you received from what I hope is a different take in the Web3 space?
No, so I think it's a totally different experience, right? Once you do a face-to-face, you get a different aspect and a different thing. So I think there's tremendous value in that, right? You're putting a face with the interviewer, and you're able to get a new experience that way. And I think there's tremendous value in that. So that makes it totally different. In a space, for the most part, you're just chattering away. You have no feedback. There's no visual clues, right? One of the art of listening is to be able to look at somebody in the eyes, feel their emotion, feel how they're talking, and you can actually see their passion. Sometimes that doesn't come out in that, and you can see your passion in this. And so that's what you're delivering to the space, and like how you get excited and when you get excited. Yeah, I think that's awesome. You're doing great, man.
Thanks. I appreciate it. And yeah, I think I just want you to feel, one, my passion, but two, feel like you were able to share your authentic self, which I feel like you did today. And I just appreciate you sharing that information and giving probably a lot of the unheard story about John and how Lazy Lions came to the way it is right now. So I just appreciate that. And like, looking back at the conversation, man, like so many great insights. And I think what's beautiful about what we do, and especially when I get people like you that are willing to reflect and think about it, is I'm not like trying to intentionally ask you like, what are these what are these exact learning lessons? They just naturally come from the flow, because as you start reflecting, I mean, your childhood in Iowa, just this hard work and perseverance, and as we went through this timeline, you saw how just that alone has affected you, and you've done some really amazing things. And the thing I admire about most, and the thing that stuck with me, and I think for sure everybody really, really needs to understand this point, is how many times did we talk about listening today? It is such a powerful tool, man, to just listen. It's helped progress your career, right? The hard work and all of those different things, but then the research and the listening. Research is a form of listening, right? And it's just such a critically important part of people that I don't think they understand the true power. You could become a millionaire if you just understood how to listen better. Do you agree with me on that? Because I think I'm that powerful about listening. Just listen to people.
Yeah. Listen to people. You never know. Like, I mean,
just don't know. And
listen
so that
and be curious.
Yeah, that came across, and that's exactly literally the next thing I was going to say is your undying passion for just being curious and figuring out how things work. If you're looking for people that are trying to buy Web3 companies and someone that you want to lead Web3 companies, all of the things that you said today are the quality and traits that you want somebody to have. And then finally, man, like I said, this was a digital campfire. We just started a friendship. I really, really would love to continue to look out. You've got some announcements coming up. Let's make sure that some of the short form content comes out at the same moment in time. If you ever want to hop back on for 20 minutes and talk about an update and I can get it out for you, you are the type of people that I want to continue to help out, learn, live, and grow with. So thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate it. And with that being said, give Mikey, give John, and give Lazy Lions a follow, because we just dropped insane alpha and more is going to be to come. We love you all. John and Mikey G are out.
Peace out.